Who's ready for a bit of an unboxing update? These are going to be some of the plants that I bought recently within the last 6 months to a year and how they're doing now. I know a lot of you were curious, so stick around with me and let's have a look at some plants. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So yes, I've got a little bit of an update for you today, and it is stupid o'clock in the morning because we've been having a lot of very hot and sunny days, which is not a bad thing necessarily. It is when I leave it too late to film in a conservatory, even with all the shade cloths and everything that I've got in here, it gets a bit hot. I think it is currently 7 a.m. and the temperature in here is about 25 degrees Celsius with about 80% humidity. And I've got all of the fans on me and I am still sweltering. So bear with me if I look a bit hot and bothered by the end of it. But yes, without further ado, as I said, we're going to be looking at some plants that I have bought recently-ish, like kind of last couple of purchases up to 6 months to a year. And I'm going to do a bit of a mix and match for plants that I know that people were curious to see how they're doing. Yeah? So let's start off with a plant that was a bit of a kooky one, and I got a lot of interesting comments in my original video when I was unboxing this plant. I think the best one I thought was one person said somebody else's trash is somebody else's treasure. Which to me signifies that this plant might be a bit of a nuisance in kind of more in places that have kind of similar climate to its natural habitat. And that is this plant over here. Remember how much smaller this was? This is the tamarind plant. And I know for a lot of people, when they're growing this outside, the people that I was talking about before have got it in conditions which is more similar to where it would grow naturally. This will become a tree. Interesting fact that I did not know that people were saying, I think these trees are very similar to kind of maybe olive trees or even mastic in Greece that we have. So it's one of those trees that you plant, but I think takes a very long time to fruit and create those tamarind pods. So it's kind of like you plant it for your kids or your grandkids to enjoy the fruit of, if I kind of understand that correctly. But yes, let me show you what this plant looks like. And you might be able to say, it's just like, remember, there's something wrong with the plant. Why are all of the leaves looking really limp? This is a really interesting thing that it does in the nighttime. So this, very similar, so every single one of the leaves, very similar to what happens with that calatheas and everything, all the prayer plants where they close up, and then as the day, and you can see this is because this morning some of them are starting to open up, you'll get a bit more of that. I call this my little bonsai forest of a tamarind. Some of you might also notice that there's some yellowing. I don't seem to be able to get around that too easily, but I think it's to do with watering. I've seen from a lot of things online that this needs to be in very airy soil, as in almost like a cactus mix, which is in essence what this is in. So it does really well, but at the same time, because it dries out quite quickly, it's in a south-facing window. I don't want it to rot out. It is kind of struggling a bit, and some of the lowest leaves are going a bit yellow, but to be fair, the top growth is absolutely fine. Whoever had mentioned about this plant that I need to be careful for, what was it? Mealybugs? Thanks for the heads up. This has got some mealybugs on it now, and I can understand why that individual said it got mealybugs. They got sick and tired of treating it, and then they ended up throwing it away. I understand that now because I can see how all the nooks and crannies and everything would really not be very conducive to kind of treating for mealybugs, and I am dreading the fact that I'm probably going to have to treat this relatively soon. What I might also end up doing, because this is one of the plants that I was going to put out now that it's a bit warmer because it does appreciate a lot of very bright light, I might put it out soon and actually let some of the bugs, the natural bugs that are out there, deal with the mealybugs for me. This is something that I do a lot of the times, and this is a bit of a top tip. It doesn't always work, so it's a bit of a hit and miss, but if you've got a plant that has got a lot of pests, so think aphids, where outside there'll probably be ladybugs, which will eat the aphids. Things like mealybugs I've also found can benefit, or if you've got a plant with mealybugs, it can benefit with being outside, because a lot of the times the other bugs that are around might go and clear the infestation for you, as long as you remember to bring that plant back in and check for other pests. Because there is a bit of that risk. But I have done that several years now, and I've had kind of generally good success with that, so top tip. But yes, the tamarind plant is doing really, really well. It's looking a bit wet at the moment because it's got watered today, because as I said, because it's been hot, 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 hot. Yeah, it's a bit struggle bussy, but so far, so good, and I'm really, really enjoying this. So you might be able to see as well, if I bring it in a bit closer, it's very much, when I say that it's like a bonsai, I'm not lying. The actual stems, even down here, even as young as this is, because essentially this is the seedling, really. This is a group of seedlings of a tamarind tree. The actual stems are quite barky. They do actually look like mini trees. So very, very, very cool. Am I happy I got this? Yes, I'm still very, very happy that I got the tamarind plant. And let's have a look at some of the big hitters, because I know that a lot of people were questioning how they were doing. These haven't been in my collection for very long. These are more recent kind of purchases. Obviously, the plants I'm showing you are in no particular order. It's whichever one I see first that gets shown. But let me show you, let me show you a couple of plants. So first, this is the Monstera Burle Marx Flame. And this entire leaf is one that has grown in my care, and it is pregnant currently with another leaf, so it's doing quite well. Has any aerial roots gone into the moss pole just yet? No. Will it? It probably will, and I know a lot of people were questioning and saying, does it need a moss pole? I don't think it needs a moss pole. From what I was seeing from a lot of people online, with the Burle Marx Flame, the Monstera Burle Marx Flame, generally speaking, it can be quite slow, and it can be really slow to grow. Not only that, but to also get the splits on the leaves. And some people were saying, you know what, the sooner you give it a moss pole, and if you can from day one, the faster it will grow and the faster you will get those splits. So guess what this impatient person has done is given it a moss pole, because I am not about this life of kind of realizing I should have not been lazy and given this a moss pole like a year later, and I'm just like, not wasted, but I could have had more going on a relatively slow plant. But so far, it's not been challenging to grow. Did I expect it to be challenging to grow? Not the speed of growth, but challenging to grow? Not really, because a Monstera is a Monstera is a Monstera, and I know there's some Monsteras that are a bit more sensitive, but even then I'm looking now at my Oblique Peru. It's fine as long as you kind of give it the care that it wants, and that one was another one that as soon as it got a moss pole, I stopped getting runners. So top tip on that one, if you want it to maybe not throw as many runners, or at all, like I've got two different Monstera Oblique Perus, one which is in semi-hydro and has got a moss pole, but it's gone above it, and now it's throwing runners. One that is on a moss pole in a soil mix, and it hasn't gone above its moss pole, and I will try to keep it from doing that. That one's not had a runner at all, and it's got loads of new leaves. So sadly, and I know there's a lot of people that don't want moss poles, but maybe if you don't want to deal with moss poles, maybe those plants aren't really for you, or you just deal with the consequences of your actions in that situation, where if it's a Oblique Peru, you'll get runners. Or if it's something like a Burle Marx Flame, it will be even slower and probably take even longer to get the splits. Does it mean that it's not going to happen? No. Does it mean that Oblique Peru won't still get some foliage growth instead of just runners without a moss pole? No. But it will take a very long time and a lot of runners later. So bear that in mind. But yes, the Burle Marx Flame, not had it for too long, but so far, so good. And whilst we're on the topic of Monsteras, you know I wasn't going to leave you hanging. Newest leaf on the Monstera Kunzo's White Monster. And it's got a bit more green on it at the moment, that you can see that leaf that came up in my care versus the ones that it was with. I am giving this as bright light as I can possibly give it. Bright indirect light, but as bright light. This one didn't have a huge root system, so it is in a very, very light soil mix. It is on a moss pole as well, the little little moss pole. Again, to help it kind of size up a bit quicker. Am I worried that it's going to lose some of its variegation? No, actually, because if you look at that leaf from the back, it doesn't actually have that much green. It's just more on the top, basically. So I am curious to see how this will grow, whether or not it's going to basically turn into a bit like a Monstera albo or a Monstera Thai constellation. I don't know, because I was expecting a bit less green on this. However, at this early stage of the plant, I'm okay with it having a tiny bit more green if it just gives it a bit of a boost. I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty sure even the white monster isn't that stable, but I need to go back and watch some of the videos that Kunzo did on his Instagram channel to see what he has to say about this plant specifically and what the care that he gives it, and if it's a relatively stable, I don't think it's fully stable, but a relatively stable variegated Monstera deliciosa, technically. Variegated form of that, basically. So let's see, but so far so good. And I know there's a couple of people that got these kind of smaller Kunzo pups, essentially, or baby propagates or clones. I'm not entirely sure what they all were. Maybe there were some of them that were TC'd, but there's a lot of people, and I think a couple of people around the same time. I actually need to go back to somebody. Renee, if you see this, hi. I think you've just sent me a message I need to come back to. Sorry, it's been a busy few days, where you say that you've got a new leaf. I know, same is. So I'm assuming we're all going to get certain growth around the same time because all the plants are kind of starting at the same time. So yes, very exciting. So far so good with this. So far so good. I mean, it's very early days still. Okay, and let's have a look at a couple of succulents now. So one is, the Senecio stapeliiformis, and this is the one that I think sometimes is also called the pickle plant. And I was very excited to get this when I got this. However, and I'll show you the pot. Can you see those green sections there? Some more there, and there's some more down here and here. Those are not roots. Those are these things growing in the ground. I'm just like, what? Because I've got an orchid. I've got my Dracula orchid, the Dracula solii, I think. So the one which is the monkey face orchid, and that one you're supposed to give it a big, very kind of open hold net pot, because it might have foliage up here, but the bloom might go right down at the bottom, basically. So a lot of the times people do that. It's not blooming, but it's been blooming in the substrate because they've just given it a pot, potentially. But this is a succulent type plant. It's not, I don't think it's a succulent. I mean, it's a Senecio. Maybe it's called now a curio. I don't know. I mean, I have got one that I've kind of teased out of the soil to kind of go up from there. But it is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll show you a couple of the others if I can kind of get it to focus enough without getting too many of those pebbles to fall down. You might see some more. No, it's probably not. I'll see if I can maybe grab a picture when I'm editing this. But yeah, and you can see some of the sun stressing that I was talking about, the kind of earlier summer days or sunnier days. You can see the green here, and you can see maybe a slightly, hopefully that hue is coming up on the screen. Has it been difficult to grow? No. Do I know why it's growing in the ground? I know from what I've seen online that I think technically this is a bit of a crawler, so it spreads. But going into the soil, I don't know. Like, some things that I saw is that maybe it's because it's in a clear pot, so it thinks that it's going towards the light, because this is getting an awful lot of light, even with the clear pot. So these things are photosynthesizing. They're just in the soil. So, and to me, that's a very high risk of rot. But this is drying out quite a bit. I don't know if at some point what I might end up doing is taking this out of the pot, cutting all of those, letting them callus over before I put it back in, before I expose those cut sections to moisture, and maybe using those cut sections in the soil to then hopefully root out and then grow that way. But it's a very odd one. Am I still enjoying growing this? Yes. And I think this is really interesting as well. I don't know if you can kind of see the pinching that's happened there, and then it's kind of starting to widen off again. Because that was the very top of when I first got it, and it's kind of doing this weird whoop inwards and then outwards again. So I don't understand why. It's almost like it's wearing a little corset. Oh, actually, this one is doing it as well, to be fair. You might be able to see that little kind of indent. Don't know. But Cool plant nonetheless. Am I still enjoying growing it? Yeah, I mean, it's a Senecio or a Curio. I don't know if this has moved over to Curio as well, which is so far straightforward to grow. And for what I wanted it, which is to put it straight into a south-facing window that gets baked with sun all day, seems to be doing okay. Seems to be doing okay. So no problem at all. The next thing I'm going to show you, it isn't just a pot, I promise. There is something in here. Let me see if I can move some of the soil around so you can see all of the things, all of the little somethings that are in here. Possibly. So you might be able to see something that looks a bit like an onion there. And you might see a couple of growth points. One is there and the next one is next to it. There, possibly. It's too much loose because these are all on cactus soil mixes. So this is, and I keep forgetting what it's called now. I'll put it at the top there. This is the one that's it's kind of related to the frizzle sizzle. So I can't remember the technical name. So frizzle sizzle, I'll put a picture of what this plant is meant to look like. This is the one that has like kind of tuber-like leaves that kind of spiral and corkscrew. Very, very cool. And I know a lot of people wanted something like this. And I was getting a bit worried about, oh no, has this rotted out? What's happening? But no, it's quite solid. And the interesting thing that I was seeing from other internets is that this is a plant. Is it squishy? No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, the two pups are doing completely fine. There's no foliage. These go dormant in the summer from what I've seen. So this will start growing again in the winter here. So it's a bit of an odd succulent, but actually there's other succulents that are like this. I think, the Conophytum, I think. I'll see if I can add the name at the top. That's another one that's one that looks a bit like lithops. So it kind of like each double leaves then generates another 2 leaves and then the old leaves die off. And it's kind of one of those things. That one, I always struggle to understand why, but that's another one that actively grows in the winter and rests in the summer. So when a lot of people just say, I need to give as much water as possible now to my succulent because it's summer and not in the winter, because obviously they're going to be more dormant, check with the specific succulent type plant that you've got, because obviously succulent is like saying, these things are vegetables. It doesn't tell you anything about the plant, because theoretically, botanically, there's no such thing, I think, as vegetable or fruit. Well, maybe there is fruit. I think every vegetable is technically either a leaf or a fruit, I think, if that correctly. But it's the same thing. There's no such thing botanically as a succulent plant. It's just a way that we've given to describing what these plants kind of look like. So just bear that in mind and don't just do sweeping generalizations like that, and actually check what your specific plant's growing habits are like, and specifically when it grows. Same thing goes, and this is something that people don't always talk about when it comes to some of the tropical plants. Check, because some of the stuff that might be at the higher altitudes, some of the aroids that we grow, might struggle a lot in the summer. And you're just like, why? It's the summer, it's now the growing season, why are you struggling so much? It's probably struggling because it's way too hot for it. It might not have what this has, which is more of a dormancy stage during the summer and more active growth in the winter. But because the summer is as hot as it is, and the winter is a bit cooler, that cooler period is when some of those higher elevation plants might be happiest growing. So just check that out. But yes, it's not looking like an awful lot at the moment, but I don't know whether or not this is going to come up on the screen, but you might see some of the thready-like roots. It's growing roots like madness at the moment. So it is still doing stuff, and this is what I always say, when plants are in a dormancy stage, they are dormant up top, but there's probably a lot more going on down here in order to be ready to support that explosive growth that will then happen in its growing period for this plant in the autumn and winter. Now I'll start wrapping up with a couple of Anthuriums that I've shown you before, actually maybe one more plant as well, because it's looking very cool at the moment. But let me show you, and the 2 Anthuriums have got kind of similar traits. So this is the caipirinha or piranha, I can never remember. But this is the variegated Anthurium, so you can kind of see the leaves there. Do they dull down to a much darker kind of green versus a slightly lighter green? Yes. Is this getting plenty of light? Yes, it is. Is this growing like mad? Yes. Am I still enjoying this? Also, yes. So this has been an unproblematic Anthurium to the nth degree. Do I maybe need to be giving this a bit more light? Probably. So I do have a thought of where this might end up living, which will give it a lot more of that bright, bright light. Oh, possibly up there. Oh, sorry, I got blown out there. Like light levels on days like today, insane. But yes, because I am growing another one that's kind of similar to this, those kind of flamingo type Anthuriums that you get everywhere that have got the colourful blooms, although it's not technically the bloom, I think it's the spadix, so or the spathe technically. Yeah, it's like those ones, they kind of need a lot of light. So I'm giving that one a lot of light. I might have to give this one a lot of light as well. But yeah, so far really, really unproblematic and really fun to grow this one. Really, really fun to grow. So I might try it in a slightly higher light position because this is getting good light for a regular type of Anthurium that we're used to kind of growing, not these types of Anthuriums, but maybe not quite enough light in order to keep that slightly brighter variegation, which is part of the reason why you get this plant. But am I still enjoying this? Yes. This is the one to refresh everybody's mind. This is the one that was like over 300 Great British pounds originally. And I'm just like, no. And then it was on discount and it was just like 140. And I'm just like, still no. And then I found it for like 30 or 40. And I'm just like, well, okay, I can go for that and then see what happens. And it was the first variegated Anthurium that I had. And it took me by surprise. It took me by surprise because a lot of the variegated Anthuriums, everybody's just like, oh, they look a bit sickly. I agree. I've seen quite a few of them and I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I like it. I really don't know if I like it. Then I got this one. I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to spend the obscene amounts of money that people might want for, I don't know, a variegated forgetii or a variegated, although I would love one of those now, a variegated Vitarifolium, but for something a bit cheaper, I'll give it a try. And so far, I've liked it. So much so that there's a second plant that I want to show you now, which is another variegated Anthurium. And this one, for the life of me, I cannot remember. I think it's something rainbow. I might be wrong. I'll put it at the top there. But, okay. So this is what the leaves looked like when I first got it, and this was the kind of size of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 new leaves in the space of like maybe a month or two since I've had it, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, what does the variegation look like on these? Because it does come in a lot brighter and then it fades down ever so slightly. You can kind of see as well the petioles and the midrib is a slightly pinkish color. That's super, super cool. Carrie, if you watch this, wow, you were not joking when you said watch it like size up quickly. I mean, the leaf size doubled overnight. And I've seen Carrie, who watches the video, hi Carrie, she's got a much, much bigger version of this plant. And I don't think she's even had it for that long. But yeah, this is gonna be a beast. Where I'm going to put this when it gets to its full size, I don't know, but that's a future memo problem. For right now, it's doing really well, and I am gobsmacked at how pretty some of these leaves are. Closest type of variegation that I can say to this, just to give you a bit of an understanding, this is something between the variegation that you would get on a philodendron Jose Bueno, or Jose Buono, and a philodendron, Paraíso Verde. It's that kind of variegation that you get with those plants. Very similar to this, and because of the paddly leaves, similar to that. Good thing again with this, I think if I'm not mistaken, this is more like a bird's nest Anthurium, so this definitely doesn't need a moss pole, and it's self-heading, so it will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but it kind of keeps its shape a bit more This has been exceptionally easy to grow. There are some chunky roots, and you can kind of see them a bit maybe through the plastic, maybe if that's coming up on the video. But really, really, really enjoyed growing this immensely, actually. Both of my variegated Anthuriums was so surprising to me because I'm just like, I did not expect this. But yeah, both doing really, really well. And actually, before I let you go, let's end not on a negative note necessarily, but you know I like to keep it real on this channel every single damn time. Moment of silence for the second not Monstera, Begonia bipinnatifida, and I will put a picture of one here. I don't know whether or not I've taken it off my plant care app, so I might not even have my plant's image, which was doing so well. The second one was doing so well, and then the summer came around, and then all of a sudden it just went, nope, I refuse to live. And I'm just like, do I think that putting it in a terrarium would have helped? Maybe, but in essence, this whole space, I'm talking about 80% humidity in here, it is a giant terrarium. I do not know what I'm doing wrong with that plant, that it hates life and hates me as much as it does. Am I slightly salty that Sarah, the plant rescuer, can grow her one to a big size in a regular household condition? Yes. Do I think if I gave mine a terrarium it would have done better? Maybe. Am I going to be trying that plant again? For how much I loved the look of it, and it looks a bit like seaweed and all these things, and you saw how excited I was during the unboxing of that plant. 2 strikes and it's out for me at this point. I'm just like, it's a beautiful plant. I can admire it from afar, but obviously it's not a plant that I, with my care and my conditions, can grow it happily. I've killed 2 plants of this now so far. I'm not trying it again. It's a beautiful plant, do not get me wrong, and I know that people have, for example, of Sarah the plant rescuer, she was able to grow it happily in a household condition to a big size. There's obviously something that I'm doing that's not gelling with this plant, and I have got more than enough plants to keep me busy enough rather than trying to figure out how I can tweak that. I did try it because this was, as I said, the second plant that I got, and it was doing a lot better. The other one kind of deteriorated super fast. This one did okay. I do not know what went wrong. And yes, it is with the compost gods at the moment, sadly. But yes, on that very cheery note, I wanted to end on a high, but I think I needed to give you an update on that one because a lot of people were curious to see how I was going to do with plant number 2. Reality is slightly better than the first one, not that much greater basically. But yes, any of these surprised you? Do you have any of these? How are you finding growing them? And just because I'm nosy and curious and I've had a bit of a week, I will tell you about it in the next unboxing. This week has been not great for my mental health, let's just put it that way. But so yes, cheer me up a bit and tell me what plants you bought recently, just so I can live vicariously through you and just go, ooh, that's so cool. I wish I had one of those. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.